right now, at this very moment. Fear is controlling your life in ways you don't even realize. It's not just the big, obvious fears, the ones that make your heart race or keep you awake at night. It's the subtle ones, the quiet voice that tells you not to speak up in that meeting, the invisible wall that stops you from pursuing your dreams, the whisper that convinces you that you're not good enough. But here's what most people don't understand. Fear isn't your enemy. Fear is actually trying to protect you. And once you understand how it works, everything changes. Welcome back. Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of fear. Not to terrify you, but to liberate you. Because the more you understand fear, the less power it holds over you. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why you're afraid, how your brain creates those fears, and most importantly, how to break free from them. So stay with me. Let's start with the foundation. Your fear response is ancient. It's older than language, older than civilization, older than rational thought. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, your ancestors faced real, immediate threats. A lion in the grass, a rival tribe at the border, starvation during winter. The ones who felt fear and responded quickly survived. The ones who hesitated didn't. So fear became embedded in your DNA. It's literally written into your neurobiology. Your amygdala, this small, almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, is the alarm system. It's been scanning your environment for danger since before you were born. And here's the problem. It hasn't evolved much. It still thinks you're living in the savannah. That meeting at work, your amygdala treats it like a lion. That social gathering, same thing. Your brain can't distinguish between a genuine physical threat and a perceived social threat. To your nervous system, rejection feels like death. Failure feels like starvation. And that's why fear is so powerful and so pervasive in modern life. There's something fascinating happening in your brain that most people don't know about. When you encounter something potentially dangerous, there are two pathways your brain can take. The first is the fast pathway, the quick route. When you see something that might be threatening, your amygdala responds instantly. Before your conscious mind even processes what's happening, you jump, you flinch, you feel that surge of adrenaline. This happens in milliseconds. This pathway is about survival, not accuracy. The second pathway is slower but smarter. It goes through your cortex, your thinking brain. This is where logic lives. This is where you can evaluate the actual threat. So when you see a dark shadow on the street, your amygdala screams danger. Your heart races, your muscles tense. But then your cortex kicks in and says, wait, that's just a tree branch. The fear subsides. The problem is this. In modern life, we spend most of our time activating that first pathway. We're constantly receiving threats, not physical ones, but social and psychological ones. A critical email from your boss, a comment on social media, a moment where you felt embarrassed. Each time that fast pathway fires up. And if you live in a state of constant low-level threat activation, your nervous system stays in fight or flight mode. That's exhausting. That's where chronic anxiety lives. Here's something powerful. Most of your fear isn't actually based on what's happening right now. It's based on stories. Stories about what might happen. Stories about what people might think. Stories about what you're capable of or not capable of. Your brain is a prediction machine. It's constantly trying to anticipate threats based on past experiences. And most of the time, those predictions are wrong. Think about it. How many things have you worried about that never actually happened? How many catastrophes did you anticipate that never materialized? Research shows that about 85% of what we worry about never happens. And of the 15% that does happen, 79% of people handled it better than they thought they would. Let that sink in. We're spending enormous amounts of mental energy on fictional futures. The reason this happens is because your brain is trying to protect you. It's running simulations, playing out worst-case scenarios, trying to find problems before they arise. That's actually a useful function, but it becomes a problem when you believe every story your brain tells you, when you confuse the thought with reality, when you let the simulation become your truth. When fear takes over, something very specific happens in your body. Your sympathetic nervous system activates, adrenaline floods your system, your breathing becomes shallow, your heart rate accelerates, blood rushes away from your digestive system and your hands toward your core and your legs, preparing you to fight or run. Your pupils dilate. Your thinking narrows. This is called the fight or flight response, and it's incredibly useful if you're facing a tiger. But here's the thing. This same response activates when you're about to give a presentation, when you're waiting for a phone call from someone you care about, when you're lying in bed at 3 in the morning thinking about something embarrassing you did 5 years ago. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. That's why anxiety can feel so physically real and so overwhelming. Understanding this is important because it means the sensations you feel, the racing heart, the shortness of breath, the feeling of dread, they're not dangerous. They're uncomfortable, yes, but they're not harmful. Your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The problem isn't the sensation. The problem is the interpretation. When you feel your heart racing and you think, something terrible is happening, you fuel more fear. But if you can recognize those sensations as your nervous system doing its job, as information rather than danger, the cycle breaks. Your brain has a very specific job, keep you alive, and it takes that job seriously, so it's always scanning, always vigilant. But here's the psychological trap. Your brain is much more responsive to threats than to safety. This is called negativity bias. You can have 100 good things happen, but that one negative thing will dominate your thinking. This means that to feel safe, you need explicit safety signals. You need evidence. You need reassurance. But here's the problem. Reassurance only works temporarily. If you seek reassurance compulsively, checking your email constantly to make sure you haven't been fired or checking your bank account to make sure you're not broke, you actually reinforce the anxiety. Each time you check, you're telling your brain, yes, there's a real threat here. We need to stay vigilant. You're training your nervous system to stay in fear mode. The antidote isn't more reassurance. It's something different. It's gradual exposure to the feared situation without the catastrophe occurring. It's proving to your brain through lived experience that the thing you're afraid of either won't happen or that you can handle it if it does. That's how you actually reprogram fear. This is crucial to understand because most people do the opposite of what would help them. When you're afraid of something, your instinct is to avoid it. You're afraid of public speaking, so you avoid it. You're afraid of rejection, so you don't ask. You're afraid of failure, so you don't try. This avoidance feels good temporarily. The anxiety decreases the moment you decide not to do the thing. But you're actually training your brain that the thing is dangerous. Think of it this way. Every time you avoid something out of fear, you're voting for that fear. You're saying to your brain, yeah, that thing is scary, let's stay away. And your brain takes note. The next time you approach that situation, the fear is even stronger. The avoidance becomes a habit, and that habit defines your life. The counterintuitive truth is this. The things you're most afraid of often contain the most growth. The presentation you're terrified to give could launch your career. The conversation you're avoiding could deepen your relationships. The dream you're too afraid to pursue could become your life's purpose. But you'll never know if you keep avoiding. Here's something important. I'm not telling you to be fearless. That's not the goal. Fearlessness is actually a sign of poor judgment. Fear serves a purpose. It alerts you to genuine danger. It motivates you to prepare. It creates healthy caution. The goal isn't to eliminate fear. The goal is to distinguish between fear that's protecting you and fear that's imprisoning you. Real danger requires caution and preparation. You should be careful on a dangerous road. You should prepare thoroughly for something important. That's wisdom. But imaginary danger requires a different response. It requires questioning. It requires curiosity. When you feel fear, ask yourself, What specifically am I afraid will happen? How likely is that, really? If it did happen, could I handle it? What evidence do I have that this is actually dangerous? This reframing is powerful because it shifts you from being at the mercy of your emotions to being the observer of them. Instead of, I'm terrified, you can say, I notice my nervous system is activating a threat response. Instead of, I can't do this, you can say, this feels uncomfortable and I can do uncomfortable things. That subtle shift in language reflects a shift in power. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Let me say that again because it's so important. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action despite the fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Think about anyone you admire who's accomplished something significant. That person felt fear. They felt doubt. They felt uncertainty. But they did the thing anyway. And here's what happens when you do that. Your brain updates its threat assessment. You give a presentation and don't die. You ask for what you want and don't get destroyed. You try something new and discover you're more capable than you thought. Each time you do the thing you're afraid of and the catastrophe doesn't happen, you're literally rewiring your neurobiology. You're changing the neural pathways. You're training your amygdala to recalibrate. This is why small acts of courage compound. One conversation leads to confidence for the next conversation. One risk leads to the ability to take bigger risks. One dream pursued makes pursuing the next dream easier. Courage is a skill, and like all skills, it develops with practice. Before we finish, I want to tell you something. You're allowed to be afraid. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be brave all the time. Sometimes you'll feel fear and you'll do the thing anyway, and that's incredible. And sometimes you'll feel fear and you'll need more time, and that's okay too. Self-compassion matters as much as courage. But here's what's not okay: letting fear make your decisions for you. Letting fear shrink your life. Letting fear convince you that you're not capable. Because inside you, beneath all that fear, is someone far more capable, far more resilient, far more worthy than your fear wants you to believe. Your fear is trying to protect a much smaller version of you than actually exists. Fear is part of being human, but it doesn't have to be the master of your life. You now understand where fear comes from. You understand how it works in your body and your brain. You understand that most of the catastrophes you fear will never happen. And you understand that the antidote isn't avoidance. It's gradual, courageous action. So here's my challenge for you. This week, identify one thing you're afraid of. One thing that's been holding you back. And take one small step toward it. Not a huge leap, just one small step. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Notice what happens. Notice that the fear decreases and your confidence increases. If this resonated with you, if you found value in understanding the psychology of your own fear, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into human psychology and personal growth. And leave a comment below. Tell me, what's one fear you're ready to face? What's holding you back? Let's support each other in this community. Thank you for being here. Keep growing, keep moving forward. And remember, your fear is not a stop sign. It's information, and you get to decide what to do with that information.